Isabelle's life had always been a symphony of control and order. As a renowned architect in the bustling city of Lyon, she was accustomed to crafting precision from chaos, turning sketches into towering skyscrapers and derelict spaces into works of art. But in the quiet spaces between projects, a growing void gnawed at her, a hollow that even the most intricate designs couldn't fill. At 45, Isabelle had never been married. Her work was her passion, her solace, and her shield against the loneliness that lurked in the shadows of her success. But as she watched her younger colleagues leave work early to attend to their growing families, she couldn't ignore the ache in her chest, a longing for something she had never allowed herself to fully explore. It was during one of these late-night musings, with the city lights twinkling like distant stars outside her office window, that her phone buzzed. The message was from her old university friend Clara, whom she hadn't seen in years. "Hey Belle, it's been too long. I'm organizing a reunion at my place this weekend. No excuses, you're coming." Isabelle hesitated, her thumb hovering over the reply button. She was never one for social gatherings, especially those that dredged up memories of the past. But something in her compelled her to type a response. "I'll be there." The weekend came faster than she expected. As Isabelle drove through the picturesque countryside towards Clara's estate, she felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. The reunion was just as she had imagined: laughter, clinking glasses, and old friends reminiscing about their youth. Isabelle drifted from conversation to conversation, politely listening, but her mind was elsewhere. As she made her way to the garden to escape the noise, she noticed a man standing alone by the fountain. His back was to her, but there was something familiar about the way he held himself, straight-backed, confident, yet somehow withdrawn. "Isabelle? Is that you?" The voice was deep, resonant, and filled with a warmth that tugged at something deep within her. The man turned, and Isabelle felt her breath catch in her throat. It was Marc Dufresne, the one who had slipped away all those years ago. "Marc," she whispered, unable to believe her eyes. He had aged, of course, but the boyish charm she remembered had matured into something more profound. His hair was peppered with gray, his face more lined, but his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, hadn't changed at all. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, the memories of their shared past rushing back in a flood of emotions. Isabelle had known Marc during her university days. They had been close, sharing late-night study sessions, coffee runs, and countless conversations about their dreams and fears. But just as their friendship had begun to blossom into something more, life had taken them in different directions. "I can't believe it's you," Marc finally said, stepping closer. "It's been a long time," Isabelle replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They spent the rest of the evening talking, catching up on the years they had missed. Marc had become a celebrated sculptor, his works displayed in galleries across Europe. But like Isabelle, he had chosen his career over a personal life, and he was still single. As the night deepened, they found themselves alone in the garden, the air thick with unspoken words. "Why didn't we keep in touch?" Isabelle asked, breaking the silence. Marc sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Belle. Maybe I was afraid of what could have been, or what we might have missed out on." Isabelle looked down at her hands, a wave of regret washing over her. "I've always wondered, what if?" Marc reached out, gently lifting her chin so she could meet his gaze. "What if we stopped wondering and found out?" His words hung in the air, a challenge, a promise. Isabelle's heart raced as she realized this was the moment, an opportunity to reclaim something she thought had been lost forever. They didn't speak again that night. Words were unnecessary. Instead, they walked side by side through the garden, their fingers brushing together until finally, they intertwined. It was a tentative connection, but it was enough. The days that followed were like a dream. Isabelle and Marc spent every moment they could together, exploring the countryside, visiting old haunts, and discovering new ones. They talked about everything: their careers, their regrets, and their hopes for the future. The connection they had once shared blossomed into something deeper, richer, and more complex. But as the reunion came to an end, reality began to creep back in. Isabelle had to return to Lyon, and Marc had his life in Paris. The thought of being apart again filled her with a sense of dread she hadn't felt in years. "Come with me," Marc said one evening as they watched the sunset from a hilltop. "Come to Paris. We can make this work, Belle. We have to try." Isabelle wanted to say yes, but doubt gnawed at her. Her life was in Lyon, her work, her friends, everything she had built. Could she really just leave it all behind? I don't know, Marc," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "What if it doesn't work out? What if we lose everything we've just found?" Marc pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "We won't lose anything, Belle. We've found each other again after all this time. That has to mean something. But I can't do this alone. I need you with me." The sincerity in his voice broke through her fear, and she realized that she had already made her decision. There was no life for her without Marc, no future that didn't include him. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll come with you." Marc's smile was like the sun breaking through the clouds. "You won't regret this, Belle. I promise." And she didn't. Moving to Paris was a whirlwind, but with Marc by her side, Isabelle found a new sense of purpose and joy that she had never experienced before. They set up a studio together, combining their talents to create breathtaking spaces that were both functional and artistic. Their work became the talk of the city, and their love only deepened with each passing day. But it wasn't always easy. There were challenges: adjusting to a new city, learning to navigate their different working styles, and the inevitable clashes that come with blending two independent lives. But through it all, they remained committed to each other, their bond growing stronger with every obstacle they overcame. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of their apartment, overlooking the glittering lights of Paris, Marc took Isabelle's hand. "Belle," he said softly, "do you remember what you asked me that night in the garden?" She nodded, a smile playing on her lips. "I asked what if." Marc reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I think it's time we stopped asking what if and started saying what's next." Isabelle's breath caught as Marc opened the box, revealing a delicate diamond ring. "Will you marry me, Belle? Will you be my partner in all the what's next?" Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the man she loved more than anything in the world. "Yes, Marc. Yes, 1,000 times yes." As Marc slipped the ring onto her finger, Isabelle felt a sense of peace settle over her, a certainty that she had found where she was meant to be. Together, they would face whatever the future held, unbroken and unafraid. Their love was a testament to the power of second chances, of rediscovering what truly mattered, and of daring to dream again. And as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the city of Paris stretched out before them, full of promise and possibility. And so, their story continued, unlike any other, yet timeless in its beauty. Isabelle and Marc's life together in Paris blossomed in ways neither had imagined. Their days were filled with creativity, collaboration, and a shared passion for architecture and art. But it wasn't just their professional lives that thrived. Their personal connection deepened with every shared sunset, every whispered secret in the quiet hours of the night. They were both strong-willed and used to being independent, which led to occasional disagreements, but they always found a way to resolve them, drawing closer each time. The passion they had discovered in those first few weeks only grew, fueled by a mutual respect and a love that transcended the years they had spent apart. One particularly cold winter evening, as they sat by the fireplace in their cozy apartment, sipping wine and listening to the crackling fire, Marc took Isabelle's hand. "Belle, I've been thinking," he began, his voice soft but serious. "We've made a beautiful life here, but there's something missing." Isabelle looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it, Marc?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I want us to have a family. I want to share this love we found with a child. What do you think?" The question took Isabelle by surprise. At 45, she had long since put aside the idea of having children, focusing instead on her career. But as she looked into Marc's eyes, she saw the longing there, the hope and the fear of rejection. A rush of emotions flooded her: excitement, fear, uncertainty. She had never allowed herself to consider this possibility, but now that Marc had voiced it, she couldn't stop thinking about it. "I don't know, Marc," she said honestly, squeezing his hand. "I've never thought of myself as a mother. I'm not sure I'd even know where to begin." Marc smiled, his eyes filled with love and reassurance. "We'll figure it out together, Belle. We've always been stronger together." Isabelle nodded, her mind racing. The idea of raising a child with Marc was both terrifying and thrilling. She knew it would change everything, but she also knew that if she were to embark on this journey with anyone, it would be with him. "Let's take some time to think about it," she suggested. "It's a big decision, and I want to make sure we're both ready for it." Marc agreed, and they spent the next few months discussing the possibility, exploring their feelings, and imagining what their lives would be like with a child. They spoke with doctors and specialists, considering all their options, and slowly, the idea began to take root in Isabelle's heart. One spring afternoon, as they strolled through the gardens of Versailles, Isabelle stopped and turned to Marc, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. "Marc, I'm ready," she said, her voice steady. "I want to have a child with you." The joy that lit up Marc's face was all the confirmation Isabelle needed. They embraced, the world around them fading into the background as they held on to each other, savoring the moment. The journey to parenthood was not easy. Isabelle's age posed challenges, and there were moments of doubt and disappointment. But through it all, Marc was her rock, supporting her with unwavering love and optimism. They explored every avenue, from fertility treatments to adoption, determined to make their dream a reality. Finally, after months of trying, they received the news they had been hoping for. Isabelle was pregnant. The moment the doctor confirmed it, tears of joy streamed down Isabelle's face, and Marc pulled her into a tight embrace, overwhelmed with gratitude and love. The months that followed were a whirlwind of preparations and anticipation. Marc doted on Isabelle, ensuring she had everything she needed and more. They converted a room in their apartment into a nursery, painting the walls a soft, calming shade of green, and filling it with books, toys, and a crib they had chosen together. As Isabelle's belly grew, so did their excitement. They spent countless hours talking about the future, imagining what their child would be like, and making plans for the family they were about to become. Finally, on a crisp autumn morning, their daughter, Sophie, was born. The moment Isabelle held her in her arms, all the fears and doubts melted away, replaced by an overwhelming love that took her breath away. Marc stood by her side, tears in his eyes, as he gazed at their tiny, perfect daughter. "She's beautiful, Belle," he whispered, kissing Isabelle's forehead. Sophie's arrival brought a new rhythm to their lives, one filled with late-night feedings, diaper changes, and the sweet sound of a baby's laughter. Isabelle and Marc embraced their new roles as parents with the same passion and dedication they brought to their work, finding joy in the smallest moments and in the profound connection they now shared as a family. Their love for each other only deepened as they navigated the challenges of parenthood together. There were sleepless nights, moments of exhaustion, and the occasional disagreement over how best to care for Sophie. But through it all, they remained united, their bond stronger than ever. As Sophie grew, she became the light of their lives, her laughter filling their home with a warmth that neither Isabelle nor Marc had ever known. They took her to museums, parks, and galleries, sharing their love of art and culture with her from an early age. And as she began to walk, talk, and explore the world around her, they marveled at the miracle they had created together. One evening, as they sat on the floor of Sophie's nursery, playing with blocks and reading stories, Isabelle looked at Marc, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. "This is everything I never knew I wanted," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Marc. Thank you for believing in us." Marc smiled, leaning in to kiss her gently. "We've come a long way, Belle, and it's only just beginning." Years passed, and their family continued to grow, not just in size, but in love and connection. Sophie thrived, her curiosity and creativity nurtured by the loving environment Marc and Isabelle had built. And as they watched her grow, they knew that they had made the right decision in taking this leap of faith together. Their journey had been anything but conventional, but it was theirs, unique, beautiful, and filled with a love that had weathered every storm. Isabelle and Marc had built a life together that was richer and more fulfilling than they had ever imagined, proving that it's never too late to find love, to start anew, and to create a future filled with endless possibilities. And as they stood together one evening, watching Sophie play in the garden, the sun setting behind them in a blaze of orange and pink, they knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be, together, unbroken, and forever in love.